The Hyderabad Gaming Weekend 2023 was an exciting gaming event that brought together gaming enthusiasts, startups, and industry professionals, providing a platform to showcase the latest advancements in gaming and foster collaboration within the gaming community. During the event, engaging panel discussions took place, where participants shared their insights and perspectives on various gaming-related topics.
Hi guys, this is Hyderabad Gaming Weekend. This panel is about careers and opportunities in gaming. I would ask the panel to introduce themselves, and then we'll start the Q&A.
Hi, good evening to all of you. This is Balakrishna, Professor and Principal from Backstage Pass Institute of Gaming and Technology.
Hello all, I'm Vaibhav Mahajan, founder and CEO of Abracadabra Software Solutions Private Limited. We are based out in Nashik, and we came up with India's first 3D RPG war game called Tanaji the Maratha Warrior.
Hi. Hello everyone, my name is Keval Shankar. I work as a technical artist at a studio in Austin, Texas, called Games. Also work as an advisor here at Indian Startup Studio in Hyderabad, and I also run my own studio called Viewpoints.
I'm Samthit. I'm founder of One Monkey. Been around 5 years now. Currently making effectiveness. So let's start with a few questions, and then we'll probably discuss a lot about gaming in general. So the first question is, what specific skills or qualities do you believe are essential for a successful career in game design or development? We could start.
Yeah, so to become a game designer, first of all, he must be a very creative person. He must be in a position to visualize the entire game in his mind. Then based on his visualization, he need to start preparing the story, set of rules, regulations, and all. So he must have creative and visualizing skills, first of all. Later, certain added technical skills to prepare the story, to prepare the rules, regulations, levels, world, all these things.
Actually, I totally understand that it's a tough challenge to have game developers and designers. And my fellow colleague, CEO of Backstage Game Pass, has been successfully doing it since from many years. So, as far as the game developer and designers are concerned, apart from these two categories, there are like multiple other categories has been a requirement in the game industry, such as screenplay writers or mechanics. Then there would be somebody who can definitely help out with, game art specialists. So all these categories has been a concurrent requirement nowadays. And as India is progressing with game development, we see a huge bubble is going to be created in the gaming space. And we need all those people. To be a good gamer or game developer or designer or an artist, you need to understand the basics of the trade. And I guess those would be, graphical understanding. Then it would be, coding. If it is coding, like if you want to become a game developer, then you need to understand Unity, you need to understand Unreal. And there are a few other studios which are very important. So those, there are like specific languages like C#. Then there is like, TypeScript. So all these languages need to be learned properly. As for the artist is concerned, you need to have some insight towards the art, So you should have that from within, and then only you can able to justify these kind of things actually. For screenplay writers, you need to have a creative angle to write screenplays. You need to have some basic thought process behind it actually. And these are all, it's a combination of an inherent understanding of that subject plus some training, which a lot of folks are doing. right now in India.
Just to reiterate, your question was on game design, right? How
Game design and development.
and development. Okay. So a few things, just to categorize just those two specific departments separately. In order to be a game developer, you need to understand how actual development process works, figure out niche and a specific role. Essentially, your job is to actually find the fun in a game, and that is very, very vague. Different games will have different definitions of fun. In terms of skill, like you may know things, and it's great that if you know game engines or art or something like that. But 99% of your job will be in Word and Excel and communicating with people. Communicate your ideas, and if you do these specific things in these specific order, we will actually have the fun found out in the game. That is what a game designer will do. In terms of a developer, as the other panelists mentioned, it is a lot of things, or do I just like to solve things and all that? So it is some sort of soul searching that an individual has to do. But yes, this is the broader aspect of like what.
But definitely agree with the panel where creativity is one of the most important factor for this. Not just so game development is game developer as in is a umbrella term would describe anyone between game artist, game technical artist, or game designer or whatnot. But the core thing that unifies all of them under one discipline is the creative aspect of it. Without that, you're just making a software. You need to understand if that is something for you. At the same time, skills that are necessary for a game designer, I would say, at least for a game designer that specifically is concentrating on designing systems or let's say level design or whatnot. You have about 30 years of game design that is available to you in terms of games, commercial games. You play all of them. As you play, you need to play as many games as possible. Lock and load all the mechanics that you feel are something that have pushed the medium forward, right? So note them down, keep them in your memory, and next time you get to design something, you could use some of it, remix it, rematch it, and make something new. So I think that quality of observing from what is existing already, and at the same time getting inspired from real life. So I'll continue if you want to add something, yeah.
About the game programming or game developer. See, programming means generally we consider IT programming or computer science programming like that. There are so many programming languages and scripting languages that we are using nowadays in regular IT development, like say C++, Python, C#, like that. But game programming tools are completely different. Whatever the IDEs that we are using, whatever the engines that we are using in game programming, those are completely different. Those are not generally as part of our regular computer science coding, and those are not part of our regular computer science education. So generally the computer science education or computer science graduation programs are not teaching the game engines, not teaching the tools or IDEs that we are using for engine programming or AI programming or graphic programming, so gameplay programming. For all these things, those are completely different. So that's why if anybody want to start the career as a game programmer, definitely he need to go through the respective IDEs. He need to. So to learn the game programming, I can say that the regular computer science programming like C++, C#, Python or JavaScript, all these are the foundation tools. Then by using them, we need to work with the IDEs like Unity or Unreal or OpenGL or DirectX. Like that, we need to go through all these IDEs. So that's why here I can say that game programming is regular computer science programming plus gaming IDEs.
Thank you. Yeah. So let's move on to the next question, right? So how do you approach the process of designing a game from start to finish? Can you walk us through the project, the life cycle of a project?
Yeah. So life cycle. If I want to speak about life cycle, game development is again software development only. It's a kind of what we can call software only. It's not completely new. So there are so many different life cycles that we need to go through with different phases. with different milestones mentioned for each and every phase. So with all these things, we need to go with a particular what we can call development life cycle, and we need to go through phase by phase. But in general terminology for game production, people will talk about pre-production, production, and post-production activities and the respective milestones. And for each and every activity, a set of supporting tools, a set of supporting documents. Okay, so all these things we need to go through. So frankly to say that there is no very systematic or uniquely defined development cycle, life cycle for game development. Because nowadays gaming is happening with different sizes. Something like indie game development is happening, small startups are developing, big teams are developing. So based on the team size, we need to go with the required specific development life cycle, and we need to follow the respective tools, technology, or specifications and all these things.
I agree with him on the life cycle of a game as such. But frankly speaking, we are a small studio out there, so we don't have rules and regulations to, go after any particular product. Ours is like 1.5 gigs wala game, So we idealized that, and then we came up with some basic draft of what we want to put on that game as such. Then we came up with a alpha with basic game mechanics and basic gameplay as such. Then we started talking with potential customers because it should be a product market fit, So we involved a lot of youngsters to play our game, and they like the mechanics actually. And then we started building a story around that, and we got some time to do that actually. And we got a mixture of, videos and actual gaming as a part of our game. And then we launched the alpha. We timed it right, So when Tanaji was he sacrificed his life on 4th February 1670. So we launched it just a month before that actually, so that we would get the maximum eyeballs. And that was a successful trick. So we could able to get a lot of eyeballs on our game, and then after that we timed every occasion to create a market for our game, and it has been a continuous process since then, right? Because typical gaming product would span for at least 5 to 10 years. It should, and that's the plan actually. And we are trying to publish it on multiple platforms so that even desktop audience should understand or should play our game. And likewise, we're trying to see how can we scale it day and out. There are like multiple features we're trying to take inside the game, such as Web3 aspects. We have been tied up with Tezos to have NFTs selling through our game actually. So typically, it differs, life cycle differs for game to game. So we can only share our story. So this is what we have done. And maybe it's not the best possible way, but yeah, that's the way we have gone through.
So this is going to be a long answer. I think the best way I can explain this is by giving you a case story. This is what most game studios in Dallas use, including Gearbox, Ritual Entertainment and all that. Essentially, the idea comes like, for example, let's say you have a creative director or an executive producer saying like, hey, I want to make a racing game. That's it. Basically, things start jumping into it. What you have, the first milestone there is something called a splash hack. It essentially is take whatever stuff you want, slap it into the engine, do whatever you want, and find the fun. Alright, this goes on, think of it like a high-paced game jam, but it goes on for 2 days. And you find something, and you want to scrap it. Then you do Flash Hack 2. And I was like, oh, let me find this. Let's try to make something like Super Mario Kart and all that. This seems fun. Scrap it. Let's Flash Hack 3. Let's do something like you're flying in an ethereal space or something like that. It's still a racer, right? It still fits a genre. Okay, this feels good. Slap it. Afterwards, you find, okay, this thing works in the previous Flash Hack. You go through an entire retro process. Okay, this thing works, this thing doesn't work. Let's fit this and all that. Then the game designers actually work on like, okay, what exactly are we making? In the meanwhile, the engineers are actually working on a milestone called as POCT, which is called as Proof of Concept Technology. The idea is you figure out which version of engine you're using, which version of Substance Painter, Max, Maya that you're using. Are you using Houdini or not? Like how the pipeline is going to be. Do you want to set up a batch Python scripts? How your nightly builds are going to work and all that. You figure out the actual technology and you lock it in place. You do not update it until the game is out there yet. So if the director decides like, okay, we need this game out in like 9 months, okay, we're not updating our engine, even though the new version of Unreal is so great, we are locking it. This is the main idea of it. And the artists and the engineers actually figure out what exactly are we doing in this piece of POCT milestone, which is the proof of concept technology. And like, okay, let's lock this solid down. Let's figure this thing out. While the game designer, the lead level designer, and the lead artist, and all the other leads talk with their creative director or executive producer, and it's like, hey, I want to make this way. I want to make this way. So in our case study, our game designer came up with like, hey, let's make a Mario Kart kind of racer game, like how the executive producer want, but let's make it in the realm of Toy Story. And everything's going to be massive. You are stuck in a bathroom and just like trying to find your way around this thing with different powers ups and all that. He picks out a narrative around the actual fun of the game design, which was initially discovered during the previous milestones. Then you run into a milestone called as proof of concept gameplay, POCG. The idea of this milestone, long story short, is finding the fun, or rather, since the fun was found out, you coherently gather individual bits and implement it together to have, hey, this thing works. We can actually implement it, and we can this can be a fun gameplay for a longer this thing. This will go on for a month or two, depending on how the producers break it down. Then you go into your vertical slice section where they take one small segment and they say, this is how the end result is going to be. It could be the corner of your bathroom or like a sink or the center of your track or the finish line, whatever. They pick just one part and say, this is exactly how it's going to look at the end product. While the other level designers think about how the level 2 and level 3 maps are going to be. You think on the larger scale picture and people work in tandem a lot. Nothing coherent comes into the engine. It's just a block out mess and a bunch of errors and build crashing and all that. Nothing really functions. After vertical slice, you run into something called as interim alpha. So your alpha milestone is going to be your largest milestone. There are a lot of definitions for alpha milestones, but long story short, if you say your alpha milestone, if your game is this alpha, you can say the interim milestone is also called as gameplay complete. You should be gameplay complete. What does gameplay complete mean? From beginning to end, you can play your game. Like if I press the executable, it opens up. I press the start menu. I finish everything, finish all the levels, press escape and quit. I should be able to complete it in a full-fledged cycle. So that is the interim milestone. You reach your interim milestone there. After that, you jump onto your alpha, where all your art assets go in, all your animations go in, all your rig stuff go in, your UI elements, your art elements, your sound effects, everything goes in. After alpha, it's called as asset lock. Like nothing new goes into the engine. Anything that you add will be manipulated and polished and updated, but you cannot add anything else. If you are going to add anything else, it has to go through an entire strict leads review process so that you do not break any existing builds. Then you run into beta, where things are solidly locked, and people start working on marketing materials. Hey, this is going to be a poster. This is, hey, I'm having fun playing this game and all that. Then after the beta thing, it's like any showstopper bugs. It's like, hey, if I come first in this game, the game crashes. As things like drastically showstopper bugs only get fixed. Nobody pushes anything to source control and all that. After that, it's basically going gold and launch. That's the life cycle of a normal 9-month game development life cycle thing. It's used across many studios. There are a lot of versions of it. People change the definitions depending on studio to studio. If you run your own studio, you can set your own definitions. But the overarching picture is this.
I think you guys have covered a majority of the production cycle. So just to clear up the definitions, right? So you have pre-production where you're figuring out the game, and then you log the concepts. You have a GDD that is like a Bible for your game. Someone who will drop in middle of the project would read this up and also try to understand what's the game about and whatnot. So there are a few documents like that for art Bible. There are there is a bestiary for all the enemies that are part of your game. So all this material is somehow at least 70% of it is logged in pre-production to the phase where you have completed your PVC or the proof of concept. After that, you would start with trying to reach your alpha goal, and I would like to clear up the definitions of alpha and beta and then launch or going gold, right? So alpha is, at least technically, it's called safe for internal testing. So that build is basically alpha build is for the whole team, internal QA to test it around. It goes from start to end, and you could play it. It will definitely have game breaking bugs. It's nowhere near for showing it to the public, but that is the point where you could start showing doing the focus testing. Each chapters you could see if the voice acting is being having the enough impact that the director wants. See if certain weapons are overpowered. Certain weapons are people finding ways to kind of abuse the system and kind of beat a boss very easily compared to the duration that you want it to be. So stuff like this is continuously tested, and once the a majority of the field is locked, that would be considered as beta. Beta is technically, in terms of software language, it's ready for public as well. Even though majority of the studios don't release beta builds, at least live op games usually do that. They push out their beta builds and kind of get early access feedback. So after that, you essentially are showing it to top executives or whatnot, in a company, and things get locked, and that is where you kind of iron out all the stuff. As you said, asset lock happens before that, and you kind of make sure that you're not adding anything new, but whatever you're having in the game has to have a minimum standards set by the platforms or the game directors or executives, and that is when you finally apply to all these platforms for certification. After about, I would say, at least 4-5 months, 4-5 months of going in beta, you would approach platforms and start getting licenses. And each platform has their own standards for QA. So PlayStation notoriously has very, very strict QA policies. So even if you promise 60 FPS, you'll have to give 60 FPS at any point of the time. So it has to be steady locked 16.6 or 30 FPS, and what is the MS for 30 FPS?
36.6.
Yeah, 36.6. So basically, these stats have to match regardless of the quality of the game, right? So once you've done that, you're essentially logged and loaded. Your game could be released based on your release date, or could be sent to the publisher, where he'll make a bunch of millions of CDs if that is the kind of game, or if it's for mobile, this would be the point where you start marketing it like a madman and make sure you're getting all those early access and whatnot, pre-registrations and whatnot, and then hope to God that your game is liked by millions. So that's the whole life cycle of a video game.
Can we ask questions?
Yeah, we have 2 more, and then we'll open up for Q&A. Yes.
I have a question. Yeah, so I'm from the institution. So, in academy perspective, I want to know your difficulties, like what we can call different studios are of different sizes, with different what we can call different production process, or what we can call development life cycles and all. So, when there is no uniquely defined or systematic approach for the game development, just if we are doing experiments and all these things for a period of 9 months, as you mentioned, so how you can hold your team? And what I found from the what we can call gamers is these people are very volatile. These are, frankly to say that, these are very unique species. So these are not like art student, means art in the sense, these are not like regular science students or math students or commerce students. Gamers are completely with a different mindset. So how you can hold the people for that much long period? It's a long period, frankly, to say that. In regular industry, 9 months is not a long period, but in gaming, it's a long period at this particular moment. Moreover, it's not completely grown up, and openings are there for what we can call different positions from different period, different studios like that. So people are getting excited, people are jumping from here to there to here and all. So in that particular case, how you are sustaining your team is one thing, and at the same time, if there are disturbances in the team in the middle of the development process, how you are managing that?
So just to reiterate your question so that I got it right, your question is, since the game development life cycle is so large, how do you keep your team in sync to avoid issues? How do you let them, like, make them stay on your team and not leave your team, right?
If they leave,
Uh-huh.
how you are going to, what we can call, if new people comes? Because every studio is having their own style, every studio is having their own life cycle and all. How you are going to train them and how you are going to make them comfortable with your environment, with your life cycle, with your process?
So, okay, this will be a multi-part answer, but okay, I can try answering it this way. If somebody leaves your team, like let's say if I'm running a big studio of like 50 people, and somebody leaves me like 3 years later or something like that, but it takes 6 years to make the game. If I do not take that into consideration while running my studio, that somebody's going to leave me, and that hurts me, then yes, I am doing something wrong. So definitely, it's my job to consider backup plans for backup plans for backup plans, in case if they leave, in case they do this, in case if they do this. So, which is what I do, which is what my co-workers do. Everybody has backup plans for backup plans for backup plans. Always go 3 levels deep. You might not do it, but it is always safer that way, so that you cannot keep everybody on hold. And I'm a total pro advocate of no bonds. Like, screw that. It doesn't work in this creative industry. Probably it will work in software development, but not like, I'm sure many people disagree on this, but if somebody's leaving you, then it definitely means there's something going wrong, or like you are not doing your retros properly. Retros are basically retrospective that you do at the end of every milestone. Hey, what went well, what went wrong? Even better if somebody has a complaint. It's like, hey man, not getting a raise. It's been working for 2 years. It's like, if you're not giving people raises, of course there's a probability he's going to leave you. So you need to consider that if he leaves you, do you have somebody who can take his place, or you're going to hire somebody who's going to cost you a lot more? Like, all of these have to be considered. There's no standard answer for it. Now, if somebody new comes on board, and like, how do you bring them onto your pipeline? That's another part of your question, right? The best example that I can give you something for that was also taught to me was document the hell out of things. And like, it's tedious, it's not something that people look out for, but you cannot spoon feed everybody. But you can tell them, hey, this is our wiki, just spend a week on it, just read through stuff, this is how our pipeline works, this is how we approve things. I mean, if you apply for any submission guidelines for any store, like, you have to read their documentation. Nobody's going to tell you press this button. Like, for YouTube, like Google Play Store and all that, you might have tutorials, but if you're doing something for Nintendo Switch or Sony, you can't do that. Those things are under NDA. You have to figure out how to read documentations and have to figure out how those things work. It also applies to something else. Like, most AAA game studios have their own proprietary game engines. Like, Creation Kit uses Papyrus. It's not an official programming language, but they make their logic in that. You want to figure out Papyrus, you join Bethesda, they give, hey, here's our wiki, figure it out. And that's it. Like, you have to document the hell out of it. Anybody new who's junior, senior, or principal, or a lead has to figure it out on the job. Like, this industry, like, if you do not learn on the job, you wouldn't last long. So you would do that way. Did I miss any part of your question? I'm sorry. Okay.
You covered, but my question is, for the big studios, AAA studios, they may have that kind of life cycle and process.
Yes.
But for the startups, I'm talking
about startups also, you can document. For my studio, this is exactly what we do. We hired an intern whose entire job is to document things. So it is not something that you would waste your valuable game designer's role on it. But somebody who's straight out of school and trying to figure out how the pipeline works, our game designer does a lot of stuff in Miro. Hey, this is what we have. This is the concept of what we have. Hey, here's our latest build. Let's try documenting it, because anybody who comes next will be able to look at your work and say, okay, it works. It's not going to cost you a lot to train an intern for the first time and write a few documents, because the other person who comes after him will use that as a reference and make sure all these guidelines are set in stone. You just need to do that once.
Got it. But for smaller startups, like you said, we cannot hire redundant people, right? So this is why Elon Musk came in and fired a bunch of people in Twitter, because he had to rehire them because he figured out they were not redundant. So in a big company, usually you have one guy who is like an artist, and then there are 3-4 guys who could essentially replace him if he leaves. But that is not the luxury with which startups work, or indie studios work. So they will have to readjust. That's the harsh reality. There's no way about if your leads leave you, you'll have to figure out what's next. So it is going to be a showstopper because you don't have the budget to have redundancies on that kind of level, right? So this is a challenge, and there is no right or wrong answer for this, because the way big corporates are handling this is by having redundant employees, and the only thing that will make people stick around is an interesting project and satisfaction in what they're contributing to the project. So that's about it. And if they think they want to be credited to the project, obviously they'll get credited even if they leave. But if they want to stick around and make sure that they've created an impact, they will. But this is purely will depend on the leadership team and how they're motivating, or how inspiring the game is to them. So the only thing as an indie studio you could do is make sure you have a rock solid game, or at least you're working on a project that people want to work on and is exciting. That could be a good incentive for people to stay around, but money also matters, right? So make sure you're having a baby. If you're having a baby, you need to have the money to, make sure you're supporting it. So just like that, you're having a startup, make sure that you have enough money to support the people as well. So yeah. So we'll probably move on to the next question, and then we'll open up to the QA. Yes, so this is an interesting question. Balancing creativity with practical constraints is a common challenge in game design. Can you share an example of a time when you had to find a compromise between your creative vision and technical limitations, and how you handled that situation? So, we three could answer that. I think Shreyas is 1 hour. Because he's a technical artist, right? So, I don't know which one. We'll start with you, because that would be thing.
Yeah, it's a big challenge for us as well to balance it. But, after failing so many times, we have developed some 25 casual games, and then we came up with this Tanaji, which is a mid-core game. We figured out that, whatever we develop, it should entertain to the people or the target audience, So there should be a product market fit for every feature which we will be developing inside the game. So what we do typically, after a particular level, we introduce the target audience, bunch of them, let's say 5-6 of them, and then we give that product or feature to them for testing, and we measure their responses, and we have our own mechanism to take a call on these responses, that whether we should continue developing more to add flavor to this, or whether should we stop this and then take the next feature. So that's our way to figure out that how we can manage the time for the development and not compromise on the art value of it.
Still processing. Yes. So you want me to take up? I do have one, but it's still work in progress. Fire it up. So think of a hypothetical situation which will interpret the same. Why don't you start?
So yeah, I mean, obviously, we have a set budget to any game, right? So you'll have to figure out what you could possibly do realistically within that budget. Sometimes, in real world, you are kind of overshoot the budget, but if it's an internal project, you could afford that budget. It's the money is coming from publisher. If you're overshooting, it's from your pocket. So keeping that in mind, it's fairly easy to cut down stuff because it's going to hurt you in the long term, because if you play the idea god, right? If you constantly pile on, it would be ridiculously impossible to finish a game in the first place. So defining scope is the best way to kind of make sure that you're not having, because while defining scope, you could make sure that you're not having too many sacrifices, you're not making too many sacrifices. At the same time, you need to make peace with the team that you have and make sure that the current team or the future team that you might hire could be a good fit for the scope that you're defining. So that way, a lot of sacrifices, technical sacrifices at least, could be figured out as the game progresses. But at least you have a defined scope for that to happen very less. So there are situations where we have compromised. For example, the IGDC demo that we made, we had a lot of bots, a lot of AI that we made, but they were not up to the standard. So we had to cut them down. Maybe we could explore them in the future. But the point is, we were able to pull off the bots, but it's just the AI was not as satisfactory as one would think, right? So if your standards are set in a certain level, you would possibly have some technical calls and where you would reduce the complexity. There is a scene in Occult Chambers where we had to have at least 2,000 snakes on the floor. So for that we have seen a lot. We have explored a lot of variety of things, and the only thing that was in our scope and technically possible, obviously we couldn't spawn 2,000 snakes, right? It would straight up kill no matter if you have 4090, it would kill your PC. So we came up with a clever concept of, obviously it's there, it's not something that we invented, but it's called vertex animation. So you basically are animating the actual vertices of the mesh. So these are fairly inexpensive compared to, let's say, spawning the mesh itself. So the thing that we wanted to do was actual snakes, spawning 2,000 snakes on the floor, but our technical limitation has caused to us, a way to make us find a solution that is fairly, could be run on multiple devices. So I would say it's a blessing in disguise, so where you kind of challenge yourself and find out creative ways to solve it. But yeah, since we are limited with the technology of our time, we have to make sure we're not being ambitious and wasting our time, right? So we have deadlines, we have certain number of parameters that we have to hit. So we make sacrifices, but at the same time, if you are clever, you could achieve something similar to what you want in a very different way. That could be surprising at the end to you as well. So.
Okay. I have two examples. One is a case study, another is a theory in game design. Let's start with the theory in game design. It's called the door problem. How many of you here in the audience are familiar with it? Okay, I guess just one, right? So, long story short, in order to explain this, the door problem in game design is this way. A creative director comes in and says like, hey, I want a door in my game. I'm like, okay, fine. That's nice. Okay, the 3D model is like, I'm going to model this door. Okay, nice. The texturing artist is like, I'm going to texture it. Okay, nice. The audio engineer is like, you know what? I want to make a sound effect when the door opens. The programmer is like, hey, I want to make sure that you can actually interact with the door when you open and when you close. The AI programmer is like, well, what will happen if AI interacts and closes? What will happen if the player interacts when the AI tries to interact when it opens and closes? Which sound should it play? Like the other audio engineer is like, you know what? I can make a sound that you can hear it from a distance if you turn away from the door when you interact. Then you have
Direction.
Yeah, good directions. Like, what about physics? If I put a grenade at the door, do you think the door will open or not? You see, every one thing that you try to add in the game, it spirals down into dominoes of problems along the way. So, in order to find the right balance between creativity and like technical challenges, it's like there's this motto that I was taught to me by my professors. It was called KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. The idea is add as minimal things as possible into your game. Make sure it's polished before adding something else new. An example for something like that is, I was working on a puzzle game when I was in the US. It was a first-person puzzle solver where you with your wand you do magic stuff and you do wind elements and all the other stuff. Sounds somewhat a normal game. The artist decided, hey, instead of having huge walls, let's do modular. That way we can customize each and every small bit of it. I was naive. I was like, all right, sure. Then we realized we want a large surface area. So how do we do the walls? Manually clone every single one of those. And you duplicate things. Then you gradually select them. All right, fine. This can be done. We did crunch a few knives, but okay, we set just the entire level. We played the game. Everything was flickering. Like, what's happening? It was something called as occlusion culling. The camera tries to occlusion cull things. But if there are thousands of static meshes in the scene, this was Unreal 4.14 or 4.16. This was like pre-nanite era. Like, you guys didn't have all of these. Like, what the hell is happening? What do? You have to bake your occlusion volumes. There's something called as whisk grooves in Hammer, in all Half-Life stuff. This is exactly what whisk grooves are. Basically, you have to cut down your sightlines and all that. Okay, this works fine and all that. What happened to the shadows? There are all lines between them. I was like, no, how do we fix it? Okay, let's increase our light mass importance volume. Let's make it to 64K, 128K. What the hell, our build size is 16 GB? And like for an indie game, like what's happening? Every single static mesh has a light mass volume of like 256K. Okay, it released the blurriness. So what do we do about it and all that? We changed the entire lighting model instead of doing your directional stuff and changing it to volumetric stuff. Okay, it's fine. But again, performance is tanking when I look at something that's far in the distance. How do we do that? Okay, now you again break that into hierarchical LODs and basically cluster them, and again real time you actually, when you come close, you change it into normal static meshes and all that. Okay, we set that thing up and all that. All this happened because one artist decided, let's do modular because it is static, if we can have control. This is the actual issue that will happen if we if we need good people with experience in a team. Problem is startups really do not have that, but this is something that you learn by doing things on the job. You just need to know what you're in for before adding anything new into the game. I think that's the best way I could explain how things are.
Okay, so we are out of questions. We could, we are open to QA.
So I have a question, sir. It's from Bala, sir. So basically, in India, still gaming is like parents. Basically, for parents, it's like time waste, time fasting, and of course, many students are willing to come into gaming. So how do we convince parents? That's a main primary issue I see nowadays.
Adding to his point, let's classify two different types of gaming that people can go and have their.
Understand our situation when we started in 2010. Okay, so in 2010 when we started the gaming college, even mobile games were not there. Games means only PlayStation based games or PC based games or some games we use it to play on Facebook, something like that. So at the time when we do the marketing, sir, I'm very much interested. Please talk to parent. Please convince them. And when we call them, simply they used to say that, what are you talking? We don't let our kids to play the games. How dare you ask us to let them to do a gaming course? We started with that kind of situation. And we struggled a lot for the initial 4 or 5 batches, almost up to 2016, means almost around 4 or 5 batches, 3-4 batches something. And till then, we also don't have the solid answer to answer them. Because everything is assuming it will be like this, it may be, it's something like that. But by seeing the achievements of our first 3-4 batch students, by seeing their success stories, by seeing their placements, Then if some parent is asking, then now at this particular moment, confidently we are able to convince the parents by saying only one thing, that if the student is interested, if the student is passionate about gaming, it's a super one. Career opportunities are good. Now I am able to give the stats to them. No way the engineering stats are comparable to gaming stats at this particular moment. Engineering jobs are more, but how many colleges? How many lakhs of graduates are coming? Comes up, ask about the placements. I can say that an engineering graduate or some other graduate can start their career only after the completion of their graduation, after getting the certificate, after having 3 to 6 months of training. Those are able to work on the project, but my students are able to work from third year, second semester. So if we make the education in gaming like again a traditional kind of education or something where just teachers can teach based on the experiences, they can teach with applications, they can teach with practicals. Very confident. If I have a student, first my question is to the student that, are you interested? Yes. In which domain? Means like whether you are interested in art or design or programming, or yeah, we are. And I can ask my set of questions to know whether really he is interested. Because many of the who are saying that I want childhood, then I used to have my set of questions to assess. Then if I feel that student is really interested, then I'm having my own documents, I'm having my own stats to convince the parents nowadays and to explain them about the industry and to show what we can call everything now with evidence. We are not telling anything by assuming. We are telling everything with proof. That's the way how I am doing now. But in 2010, it's almost something like every day we used to have scoldings from the parents. Some parents, once I was in, he started shouting on them, scolding on them and all. Then those are unable to handle and they called me. I also tried to convince, but he didn't to join in my institution. So I'm not asking anything. If you want, you can join, otherwise just go. By saying that, for my lunch I came to my office. He came quietly to my office, filled the application, paid the fee, took the admission and just went out. Not even a single word. Okay? Now he is working in EA. Wow. The student is working in EA. Now the parent is so cordial with this. But at that time, that is mainly in south side, convincing the parents who are with that BTech, MBBS in mind is very. But now it's so.
Okay, I'd like to add a few things, like all like super points. You answered most of it. One thing you should probably convince like your parents or whoever, maybe not, maybe yes, I don't know what's right or wrong. So let's figure it out, work and all that. Now everybody wants to become a Shah Rukh Khan or a Tom Cruise. That's exactly what the state of this industry is. And in order to convince anybody, you need empirical proof. And guess what? This empirical proof is available. Just go to stateofgdc.com and download the actual report. You'll understand that this industry earns more than movies, TVs, and music industry combined. So there's reviewed by other people in the industry. And like, if that doesn't convince them, then I don't think anything else will. This is going to work out there. There is actual data providing to like this is, and if there will always be folks who are not convinced of it. This is the time where you actually put forward like other people's opinion on it, and you actually say, hey, look at this guy, he can vouch for this, and look at this, you know him, you trust him, he can vouch for this data and all that. That thing is the only thing that will actually give them some confidence. They will never be confident unless you stand on your own feet. No matter what you are doing, even if it's software development, they'll always have their tense like, is this guy going to get a job or something like that. But no matter what, at the end of the day, they want you to be successful, be happy, and be like enjoy what you're trying to do.
Yeah, one more thing to add to this is, as this kind of education is new to us, most of the people don't know about this kind of education institutions or courses. For example, if I'm in a village, I want to pursue education in gaming. I can convey my parents. Maybe my parents may be with half accepted. Then definitely they can ask somebody who are educated in the village or in their circle, and they may ask that I want to have my son to join in gaming course. Then many people who don't know about this, they won't accept that we don't know. We can simply say that what is there in that? What that kind of courses are there? Is there life in that? This kind of means this is the answer from the educated people. The people who are in the IT, the people who are in very good jobs. Generally that is the thing. If we ask, means if we want to go with a new path, definitely people will take the advice from the. Simply I use it to share all the documents, whatever some mentioned, that the stats, the documents, the references, everything. I'm having a separate set of things, resources. I use it to share with them, and simply I use it to ask them. If needed, I will speak with them, or otherwise you share with all these things with them so that they can understand. This is the thing that's happening. And now there is good awareness. I don't say that totally. Yeah. It's somewhat easy to convince the urban kids. But from the rural, these are the difficulties that we are facing. For example, I want to show this guy. You are only looking back. What's your age? 14. Okay. He is his brother. He is our student. When we had this global game jam event, so at that time, first time I had many requests from the minors to be part of the global game jam event. Minors in the sense, okay, those are permitting from 16 plus. But I'm having many from 14, 13 school going kids, many requests. And I got calls that we are unable to register because of the age restriction. Then I changed the age 10 plus. But the people are not accepting. Global Game Jam people are not accepting. That guy came to the event. He was part of the event for 2 days. And he himself, along with his brother, named only Sim only. Again, he's a Unity programmer. And he developed it. No? He's the programming guy. Those two developed a game. Now, parent like the parent of this kind of people, they know the things. Those are simply coming, those are giving the respect to the interest of the students and all. So, mixed thing are there nowadays.
When I was doing my undergrad, I made an access shooter which I spent over a year making it. This was like a time before Unreal was free. I had to pirate it and run it. And like when I did that, they said we don't just accept games. We don't really understand this. That is the actual statement of an education institution, which is actually teaching computer science engineering. So things are changing, but there's a lot of precedents of like we are too backwards in that, and I'm glad the state of the industry is improving. It's just this needs to keep moving forward a lot more.
I have a question. So, as like game developers, like the whole creative aspect is also very important apart from the technology and all of that. So creativity comes from inspiration. Like we get inspired. So most of it is like we have to play games. So if you want to make games, so if you want to make films, you watch films. If you want to play games, you play games. So like how much as you as a part of an institution giving to your students like games. So like a lot of students would come like with a craze, right? Maybe their parents themselves see the craze and they just want them to push them into gaming. He doesn't know what he wants to do, or like he's just fascinated, he just wants to get into gaming, but he still has to find a center. His inspiration of what, and that only when he gets connected to a game. How much are you pushing them to actually play games, right? Like what is your curriculum? Like is there a part of your curriculum that you actually make them play games, push them towards games?
Yeah. So the people who are joining our institution, kind of our institution, are gamers. Core gamers, no doubt in that. So at the very beginning in 2010 when we started, we had a separate game launch. The reason is at the time games means only PlayStation based games, PC based games like that. At the time the entire game launch is always busy. We had less students, but classrooms may or may not full, but game launch is always engaged. But once these mobile games came into the picture, now everybody is having phone. The phone itself is a game launch for them. So now these people are playing games like anything. If we see our hostel students, for example, outstation students who are staying at one place during the night, if we go to the hostel, if a new guy enter into the hostel, it's something like a den. It's something like these people are with headsets and they don't know how much shouting those are making. And we use it to get the complaints from the neighbors that what these kids are doing during night. Those are screaming, those are shouting, those are creating so much noise and all. So now we're having game launch again. We're having game launch. But frankly to say that many people are having their own consoles, their own PlayStations, their own sophisticated PCs. I don't know how many are very seriously using them for education, but 100% those are using for playing games. And as part of our curriculum, we are having certain subjects to explore their ideas, to what we can call improvise the existing games, to review the existing games, okay, and all. And at the same time, we are having our in-house incubators. 2 incubators are there. We are having our in-house incubators. Those incubators are to explore the ideas of the students, to polish them, and to make them comfortable with the required infrastructure support, mentoring support, and all. So we are encouraging. It's not something like we teach, you listen. No, it's very interactive, and we can encourage our students like anything. That's why only starting from our first batch was started in 2010. They entered into third year in 2013. Starting from 2013 till 22, in every what we can call competition, maybe from IGDC or Casual Connect or Microsoft Imagine Cup or Global Game Jam, whatever, almost in every competition our students are with winners or runners from every competition. We are encouraging them like anything. So many good concepts and all.
So, that question, like, so what was the reason in the first you actually started a gaming institution way back in 2010 when like times were really hard? So, like, what was your vision?
I'm not the founder, frankly to say that I'm an employee, but I'm there in backstage pass from the very first day, heading in the same position. I'm the principal and professor from the very first day. It was founded by Mr. Surya Prakash. He is younger than me. At the time, he is around 22, 23. He's a gamer. And he went to Vancouver. He completed his course there. And then he came to here to establish a game studio. Okay, while coming, he came with 2 UK citizens, 1 USA citizen, and he. All these are from Vancouver. They came to here. They want to establish a studio, and they started searching for the skilled people to work for the studio, but they faced so much difficulty there. Then they thought that, okay, why can't we start training also? But at the time, those are not into this kind of graduation or lengthy programs. Okay, why can't we start short-term courses? With that idea, they established what we can call institution. And this name is also something like a peculiar name. Backstage Pass is somewhat peculiar name. It was suggested by those USA and UK citizens, and they started. And for that, they had a good architect. Actually, that architect is from Jawaharlal Nehru Architecture and Fine Arts University, connected person. They came to know about it. That university was divided from JNTU in 2008, and those are looking for expansion, because that's a fine arts and architecture university. Those are looking for expansion. They came to know that something is happening like that. Then they offered the affiliation or collaboration at that particular moment. This is at the time there are some people in the university who are with good vision. They had some vision that it's going to happen in future, something like that. They offered what we can call collaboration and affiliation to us. And like that, we started in 2010 with 4 students. Now we are having around 500 plus students in the premises with bachelor's, master's and advanced diploma. And we are very focused only into gaming education. We are not touching any other area. It's not something like animation gaming, VFX gaming, not something. We are purely into gaming. In the gaming also very specialized courses, because programming is the technical aspect. Art and design is the creative aspect. Generally for the programmers, they need to have good mathematics and physics skills. But generally art people don't like mathematics. That's what I found. So that's why we are having very specific courses. One course is only for design and development, means programming. One course is only for art and design. Recently in 2019, we started one more bachelor course for AR VR. That first batch is just this year passed out. So like that, we are having very specialized and very focused courses, and we are having great support from the industry. That's I need to mention, because without their support we can't do anything. In order to starting from the beginning, starting from the structuring of the course structures, preparation of the syllabus, and helping them for mentoring, because industry is looking for the skilled people. No need to a person to come to us to teach, because those are having good pay, their area of interest to work in the industry. But the industry people are asking, sometimes those are requesting their own employees that go deliver some content there, teach them. We need to, at the end of the day, we need to hire them. So it's something like we are not teaching them, it's something like we are training our own employees. In that way, the industry is really supporting us.
Other 2 questions on the gaming institutions versus like self-learner in the gaming institution.
Yeah, that's a good thing. So previously there were no institutions. When these people started the career, there were no institutions many. So they depend upon the available resources, web resources, art tutorials, something like that. Yes, for that great motivation is needed. So even though we are having that kind of interest, if there is no proper path, if there is no systematic approach, we can't sustain that kind of motivation for longer period. We can lose the interest at some time with a lot of difficulties. And even we can't convince the parents that we need to be in that particular industry. Or what we are doing is, ours is very systematic approach, starting from the fundamental. To become, if you want to become a game programmer, what is the foundation that's needed? After that, in a systematic approach, with the required core content, we are in a systematic way we are nurturing the students. And initially, frankly to say that at the very beginning, to convince the parents, we had the first program as computer science and game development. And I used to say that parents used to ask, if the gaming is not going to be there, after 4 years if there are no jobs, what is the situation? Then I used to say that it's computer science plus gaming. So computer science is there, if gaming is gone, you are having your core. So in that way, but in these 13 years, 9 batches completed the graduation. From those 9 batches, maybe around 1 or 2 students who are in IT. Almost all those people are also, because of their family constraints. Someone, one guy is there, he's a good programmer. He started his career in gaming only, but finally settled in Calcutta. But there are no good many game studios at that time. It's long back story only. So he's in IT. Except that kind of candidates, all the remaining are in gaming only. That's the thing.
So actually, I was Robert from BCA ARVR. Like it's a first of kind in the President's University in the southern part. So I was a robot then. Before joining the college, I was mentors to the immersive technologies because I had 3 years of experience there. So I eventually my team, my friends who has been graduated recently. So compared to them, I had more skills because I was self-learner at the time. And how do you justify? Because I was running my own company right now. So still they are stuck with the unskilled, which is not equivalent to the industrial requirements.
That's true. That's only because of your motivation. your self-interest. I can say that in every batch I can find the candidates like you, but not all the students like you. Okay, I'm having students who started their own studios, who are with millions of downloads of games. Teapot Games is one game studio from our student. Seven Summits is one game studio from our student. Raunak is our student. So there are many. And at the same time, we are encouraging our students to start their own studios and all. So in that way, in every batch, there will be around 10% who are exceptionally good. But I can't say that everybody are like that.
Like many of them even surely like interested to get into the institution, but I think it's just too expensive. Like cost of 1 lakh or 2 lakhs. I think they just refer the YouTube videos. How can you even have like advice, because they're gonna be interested, guys, has to be give somewhat of support from your end for the institution.
See, one thing from the institution, what kind of support means, we used to encourage them with certain what we can call workshops, guest lectures, that kind of thing. Some open workshops, guest lectures, that kind of things are there. And we are having what we can call, we are visiting the colleges, we are conducting the workshops, we are conducting the guest lectures, that kind of thing. But when it comes to the material, that's one big problem that I'm facing, because there is no systematic approach. For example, for one particular subject, if for this batch, if I'm the mentor, I can teach that subject in my own way, in my own style. My material is different. Next batch is the same subject. For that, if I have a new mentor, that approach is again different. So even here, facing lot of difficulty to prepare the material, to prepare the what we can call video lectures, to record them and all. But in somehow we are streamlining, and we are giving multiple versions of what we can call materials, documents to the students, and we are asking them, these are the different approaches. By going all those material, you can prepare your own approach. That's the way how we are teaching how we are guiding the students.
So add to that, in order to have
to add to that, in order to have a proper approach to teaching this, in game development, we use, when we are actually setting our milestones, we use something called as conditions of satisfaction. It's like, what does it take for this milestone in order to be completed? It is the same thing that was also used by our faculty for them when they were teaching us. Hey, you're learning programming. Guess what? You're learning to make your own game engine from scratch. You could make anything if you're making your own game engine from scratch. So, alright, so how do we actually teach things? So let's break it down into individual conditions of satisfaction. Okay, by the end of February, you will probably have one triangle on screen. And the end of March, you will probably have a console. The end of this thing, like, you'll probably have so-and-so, something like that and all that. You'll have different games, different perspectives and all that. If you're building your own game engine, do you want to build your own render context, which is basically like your entire render system that is from scratch? Like, do you want to use OpenGL or DirectX? So how does that work and all that? So if you break things down into individual segments, and like, this is what it takes for in order for me to have my conditions of satisfaction. If you can learn that better at college, to go ahead. The problem with online learning is you do not have those things set in standard. So you are like just winging it. Okay, I'm going to watch this guy's tutorial, or I'm going to watch this guy's tutorial, which is great, because you'll go broad, but you won't go deep. Another thing, advantages about learning things in person in a college-based environment is you have like-minded people together. That is something that nothing online courses will do. We both had different experiences, for sure. I can only talk about my experiences. The best moments in my life is when I did my master's in the US, and it's like every single person is a weirdo like you, and like likes games and does weird stuff like you. You'll never find a more harmonious set of people in an actual college-based environment. Maybe that will work out for you, maybe it will not, but you would have to attempt it first in order to see whether that's right or not for you. I'm not saying that's the good or the bad way. There are a lot of options. It's your life. You're all grown-ups. You can make grown-up decisions. Just experience things first before giving up on it.
Yes. the students who are good at it, and we are talking about exceptional students, right? So, what do you suggest, to start off the company after graduation or to have some experience in some company? Which would be better?
You want to take it or should I?
You take it first and then.
Alright. I'll be honest, you can start whenever you want. There's nothing stopping you. It's a free country. I would recommend failing first. The only way you can fail first is have some experience in failing first. It is, I know it is harsh. There's this, how do I put it? There's this thing that was being taught to me when I was being studied. It's like, it is okay if you fail here. It's better that you fail here than out there. And while I was working, my boss was like, it is okay to break things because we know how to fix things. And then they'll only rely on us how to fix things. So you learn those things. And if you want to start your company, it is great. It's just, there's this saying, like, heavy lies the crown. So it's a lot of responsibility when you're starting your own company, because it's not just you. You have your staff, their livelihoods, their families that are dependent on you. You are responsible for that. And if you go kaput, it's their lives that you're affecting. And so bear in mind that, be confident that, yeah, sure, I can probably take care of this before you actually step into it. VK started straight out of college and it worked out for him. And there's no good or bad answer. Yeah, it's just be thoroughly planned. Okay, is this what I'm doing? It's like, do not just wing it. It's like, I want to make a game, let's just make a game. That's not a good way to start. Break things down, write it first. Like, if you are unable to write down your thought process in the first place, you can never make it down in the first place. Break it down. This is exactly what I need. This is what I will eat. I do not have this. Can I change my scope and see, like, can I do this and try things in baby steps and all that? So the studio that I started and the game that we are making right now, we can have some idea about it, but it's like, it's going to be successful. Maybe or not, I don't know, but it's not the game that I wanted to make when I started the studio. This is just the first game that I know that 2 games afterwards I will get to make the game that I want to make and all that. So think as your dream as your last option. Think about what smaller baby steps do I need. Hey, if I'm going to make something like an RPG, let's make a small 2D game which has a small inventory system. Like, all of these will build up over the course of time, and all these experience will add up over the course of time.
You can share yours.
Yep. So yeah, man, you could straight up start from college, so no worries there. You could also start it while you are in college. So that's not the problem. The problem would be the mindset that you have. Are you fit, or are you mentally ready to take that kind of responsibility? So that is what is going to make or break it, because there will be times, and most definitely there will be times when you'll have to wrap up and there's no way out, and yet if you have the mental capacity to move on, right, make the right decision, sacrifice few fishes to save the ocean, stuff like that. If you have that kind of mindset, you could start your company or startup, whatnot, at any point of time. But there's a saying, a very general one: if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So make sure that you're planning everything that you're going to. If you're starting a company, definitely have the runway for at least a year, because if you're doing product, you need at least one year worth of runway to have that headspace to kind of have a team together. If you're a solo dev, then there is no point in even having a startup, right? Just make your game. If it works out, then start out having I know people right now who had multiple successful games, and yet they are not a studio. They're just indie studios, indie people who were not registered anywhere, sole proprietorship and whatnot. So the idea is, you'll definitely know if you're capable of maintaining a bunch of people right out of college. If that is not something that is a skill set to you, then probably you're going to fail. So make sure leadership is not exactly a skill that can be taught. You'll have to pick it up. Obviously we could say these are necessary, but you'll still have to pick it up and naturally be good at it. So point number one, if you are ready for that kind of responsibility, if you are ready to deal with not making a game for 6 months and just dealing with people, stuff like that, because founders do have to do that a lot. You would say, no, I don't want to deal with people, I just want to make game, then you probably are not a good fit to be a founder. So make sure that you are, because even in any field, right, like even superstars or movie stars, right, they don't deal with acting on the daily basis. Their entire 6 months would look like 70% negotiating with scripts and directors and whatnot, and this 20% of acting and whatnot. So that is how even a founder schedule is going to be. You're not going to sit on the game every day, and if you are comfortable with that kind of mindset where you're not a game developer, you're probably running a studio, you have to play both a business guy and a creative guy. If you think that's your jam, then you could start right out of college, but definitely just don't start blindly. I've seen a lot of startups fail without experience. Few people think that hiring a bunch of people together and putting them in a room will make a game and start earning money. So definitely don't be naive. Do your research, and if you think you're confident to make something exciting for people, jump, trust your gut, but always don't fail to plan.
So I saw many students of us who started their studios while pursuing the course in their second year or third year, did all the experiments. They have gone through the entire process of failures, normal game, then commercial quality game, that kind of things, good number of downloads and all. By the time of their graduation, those are with successful games. Those are with successful studios. We're having around 10 to 15 that kind of success stories from Backstage Pass. If they start developing the game, means we are encouraging them to register their studio. It's not costing much, but they can have that proud moment for them that it's my studio. Many people can register their studios, but there are some people who are able to continue with them. Yes, and another thing is, during the course, if you start that kind of journey, there will be no pressure on you. Suppose if you are doing your second year or third year, if you develop a game, whether it is good or bad, whether it is with good number of downloads or not, successful or not, but everybody will appreciate, because you did something, you started learning. There may be some failures. For next game, definitely you will do some betterment. Like that. Suppose if you start experimenting after your graduation, you need to answer many people. Parents, okay, we may convince the parents because they are with us, we can convince them. But what about the neighbors? What about the near and dear? Everybody will ask what you are doing, what you are doing. We can't face it. That's a big problem. Because of that, some people, even though those are having that in mind, those are compromising. Those are doing the game development, or those are having their own studios, doing the work in the weekends, but during the weekdays, working for the sake of family or near and dear in a regular job. So that's the thing. But if you have that kind of idea, and if you start that early during your course of study itself, you can cross all those hurdles during the course, then you can come like a successful entrepreneur from the college itself. So I saw many people like that. There are so many success stories like that.
Just to add another point onto that.
Yes, you'll have a lot of friction between whatever when you started, like your parents or your family or something like that, and you would have to deal through it for sure. This thing that said, like, if you cannot deal the criticism of your parents, you cannot deal with the criticism of your neighbors. If you cannot deal with the criticism of the neighbors, wait until you hear from the criticism of your boss or your supervisor. If you cannot deal with the criticism of your boss or your supervisor, wait until your game goes live, until somebody, a fat Reddit guy, starts commenting on your game saying this is a piece of shit, go kill yourself. Like that will hurt you. So be prepared to brace those negative things. So it is part of the job. If you are very sensitive to those things, wait, gain some experience, gain some hate, do some like stand-ups or something like that to gain some confidence, then start.
I would like to add, see, entrepreneurship in India has become the fashion, it's like everybody wants to be an entrepreneur, and it's a bit of a fashion nowadays actually, but there should be a lot of thought process behind, what you want to start, whether it has, appeal, or, have you tested the idea first of all, and how many, people have tried your product or game. So it all depends on what is the idea. If it is a product market fit, have you tested it before? And of course, how can you manage the show? So it's not a fashion. It's more of a pretty serious thing you're going to enter into actually. So you have to have a lot of responsibility to sell further. So take it seriously, test it first, start small. There is something called Google Springboard, where you can Google Springboard, right? Right. So what they do at their end is they just have Google Sprint, they call it. So in Google Sprint, you can identify, let's say, 5 potential customers, and then you can show the screenshot of your personal product, and then you can analyze. So that sort of mechanism have you done for your product, and accordingly you can take a call that okay, this is what it stands. So that's the thing actually I would like to put, in terms of taking it more seriously. And it's not a fashion. It comes with a lot of responsibility.
Any more questions?
Yes, sir. Any person who is passionate about game, they obviously have a dream of having their own studio. Like this, something they can say proud of being a proud key. So I've seen a lot of people, lot of passionate people, and honestly some very skilled people. So they want to start their something like a studio company. So when they start, they're very excited. There are some people, there are some friends or something from similar like-minded people. They start something for a family. They start a studio in a very small place. They are very excited. They start developing games. They start making games. So they have a dream of building a studio company in the future. So when they move on in forward, they face problems. When they start studio, obviously you have to keep your studio survive. And if you are a big team, you have to hire people. You have to build your team. You have to grow. So lots of people they have a dream of making their own game, making their own AAA games and big studio company. So when they grow, there's a situation where you deal between your dream and your survivability. So there are lots of scenarios, lots of examples where people start their own studio company, and they have to finally get deal with working for some other studio, or either shut down, or that's the scenario. So what's your perspective on somebody who wants to start their own studio and a path which you want, which is more secure, or which I would say more professional? So what way you think a group of people should move on to stay safe or stay to build something like
One line answer: fail fast, felt differently, you know. Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, actually, you have to fail first, right? And then you can really understand what exactly can go right. So you have to fail multiple times with multiple agendas, with multiple aspects, you know, and then you can really understand that what can be the right, you know. So fail fast, fail differently.
There is no universal answer. I'm sorry to your question. I can only talk about case studies on my end, on his end. Like when VK started out his studio, he started making his own games. Of course, he had envisioned like this is exactly what I want to make, but initially he had to take up like service-based projects to keep the company afloat and work on his same games. My case is a bit different. My studio is a part-time studio. Like everybody works 3 hours a day. That's not more than that. I work a full-time job and I use that to fund my studio. You can use something else to fund your studio, like whatever works in your business model. Maybe you have a wife who's filthy rich. Who knows? Your source of income. Like if you're starting your studio, it is your job to find a source of income, regardless of whatever the means necessary. I mean, don't do criminal stuff, please. Just the idea is like find whatever ways to make the company afloat, but do not lose your employees in the process. You brought them on board with a particular vision in mind. Hey, we want to make the next GTA. Alright, what are we making? Next Flappy Bird. Why? Because this puts food on the table. They'll probably sustain it for a month or two, but you'll lose them if you keep continuing doing that and not work on the thing that you promised. So deliver on what you're trying to do, find other alternate ways. There are so many broad answers, there's no standard definition to it. I think the best way I can tell is come aboard and figure it out. Let's share our stories.
Yeah, so starting a studio in the right way, there is no right way to start a studio, but if you're talking about financials, right, as I said, you need to have a runaway. If you're having a baby, you need to make sure that, you know, you have money to, make sure that you're supporting it. So it's just like that. So you either make money to service, you either have a full-time job, like he said, or maybe, you don't fully commit to the studio first, slowly start building a project in stealth, and then if you find some investors or publishers or something like that, you could go full-fledged. So there are multiple ways to start a studio, but if you sit around and without any sort of plan, if you think 4 people are going to sit together and make something and it's going to work out, then you're setting up yourself to failure. So make sure there's a plan, at least something that makes sense, right? So runway is definitely important, because funding in India is scarce for gaming at the moment. Obviously, we are getting funded, but it still is not happening at the rate that we think it's supposed to. I've seen a stat where gaming companies together have raised 2 billion in India in the last 5 years. So yes, there is money, it's just not enough. So at the moment, I would encourage you to have demos, vertical slices when you're already part of some full-time position, and then jump into a studio if you have something promising, because gaming is entertainment at the end of the day, and something that's entertaining to you might not be entertaining to a bunch of people that are trying to give you money, right? So these people are heavily based on numbers. They'll tell you what the target audience are, who are you targeting, what are the kinds of games that with similar size have made, and how do you think you can justify the same amount of sales or something like that. So there are a number of questions that you'll have to be prepared for, and there's no right or wrong way to start a studio. What I'm trying to emphasize is that if you are doing something risky, there needs to be a plan B. It could be a service, it could be your full-time position, or it could be your IT job and you're jumping into this, something like that. You need to have a backup. Without a backup, you're just setting yourself up to a foggy way. You don't know what's going to happen, and you're also leading your team along with you into that pit. So have a roadmap, have 1 year runway at least to begin with, and then you can start about starting a studio. Before that, just don't think about a studio. Just think about them as games. They will in turn take care of you and build a studio. So yeah.
I have, this will be a last question. Can you list 5 last failures we have done in last 2-3 years? Top of them, it changed your career. Then students can see that like today, rectify point in their life or going to that or may not going to that. That could be one case. If you can share.
So some of the question you're asking us to explain how to shape it. It's a hyper casual game. Was made literally on nothing, right? So it's a simple game that I launched on App Store. For about 8 months, I didn't know what was happening. I just launched it. A drop in the ocean. Nobody can see it. And after 8 months, it somehow got featured on Chinese App Store, and I got about 70,000 downloads. But after that, it goes out of curation, and then the downloads drop. So this is before me starting the studio. Gamers have played it and whatnot. But at the end of the day, there are thousands of games that are launching every day, and the reason I'm sharing this with you is marketing many people. If the audience don't know about your game, then there's no point in committing yourself for 3 years or 4 years and making the game. You'll need to figure out a marketing strategy from day one. If you don't have a marketing strategy, find a publisher and let them figure out the marketing strategy. If you are doing an in-house marketing strategy, find the money for marketing, because I'm telling you 70% of your video game budget is going to go for marketing if you're going to do it on your own. So I think that I would necessarily not call it an exact failure, but it was made on nothing. But I definitely did learn that marketing is way more important than obviously you need to have a good game, but if there is no marketing, then your game is nothing.
So I have like 2 failures that I'd like to share. One is when I was literally starting out. The first thing I did was, alright, let's open up Unity or Unreal and just try to make something. Let me make a Flappy Bird clone or a Temple Run clone or something like that. And I did this for multiple projects, and how many of them do you think ended up seeing the light at the end of the day? 0. Not a single one of them. So the thing that I learned is, write down your ideas first. Don't jump straight into the engine. Put down your thought process onto a piece of paper, chalkboard, or even write on the soil. It doesn't really matter, or just talk to somebody. Hey, this is exactly what I want. When I press this button, this is exactly what will happen, and this is exactly what the things will go on and all that. If you have that thing figured out, the probability of you seeing through your game will increase exponentially. That is one advice I would give. To folks, this is stuff that I failed multiple times, and God knows how many game projects are there in my external hard drive which haven't seen the light of the end of the day. But the same principle applies. And the other thing is, if you start on a game, see it through. Ship it. Even if it's bad, ship it. Even if it's ugly, ship it. Get the criticism for the public. Get the hate. Get the positiveness. It will change you. It will inspire you, or it will teach you a lot of things that you couldn't have learned if you haven't shipped the game. Not just individuals, even big studios do this. If you look at Gollum or Redfall and all that, they knew this game is not gonna work out well and all that, but they still ship it because of all the hate. Every single YouTuber does a deep dive analysis. You're like, this is what went wrong. We missed in our QA thing. Shit, we should have done this differently. Why did we decide to do this? Let's not do this. You learn a lot of things if your game is out there, even if it's ugly. Yeah, it's your job to receive the hate. Don't kill yourself over it. That's part of the industry, but see it completely through. Don't just give up. It's I don't want people to judge me just because it's not good. Put it out there. Put it out there for sure, but don't leave it halfway through and say, I'm done with this.
we have developed some 25 games earlier before Tanaji actually, and they failed miserably. Few of them they did partial. I mean, they are seeing partial success. So I understood one thing out of that. Key only having a good idea is not sufficient actually. Of course, you need to figure out a good or the best idea possible for your end customer or end gamer to which you want to cater. But as this is a marketing world and you're just dropping the ocean. So you need to figure out that how I'm going to, market the product, right? If it is a product market fit or not. See, if you have spent 2 months to develop, that means that you might have spent almost lakh or 1.5 lakhs rupees to develop. So that would be a development cost. But what about the marketing, So I'll put some light on marketing as well. So for your game, you need to have some marketing budget as well, For on monthly basis, maybe if you put let's say 50,000 or 1 lakh for marketing, so you need to figure out what is ROI. So how much I'm getting back as far as my marketing money is concerned. Is it like 2 lakhs or 3 lakhs I'm getting back out of the market? So how it's going to happen actually? Are my products, are my in-app purchases happening? Are there enough ads in the product actually? So how I'm going to get back the money? So that's the first thing you should keep in mind, and then only you can able to have chances of survival. So that's my thought on for all young entrepreneurs or all young game developers. You need to put this thing in mind actually. It's not only development, because many times what happens is like people only focus on having a good game, and they just don't know what's the market is like. So there are only few ideas once in a blue moon. They are like unique and original. Peter Thiel has a book called 0 to 1, in which he mentioned that all the basic original ideas are like very, very rare to have. So all these games are like mimics, so they have the earlier versions, and then you polish them, you pick them a little, and then you came up with some small innovation, and then you push it again. For example, if you have, let's say, Super Mario, you can have Jai Hanuman, that is an Indian version of that, but that's not sufficient, So you need to have basic genuine ideas to create a product actually, and it will take a while. It's not happen, out of the blue actually. And if you don't have them, so don't fake, don't fake it actually. So that's the solution I can give to you. Thank you.
Yes, I feel.
So, successful games comes from the Japanese gaming industry. Yakuza, Pac-Man, Super Mario. From the history, from the start in gaming, where is a born, from till date, most of the successful games came from the Japanese culture. So, how is that culture different from the Western culture? It's a complicated, not but it's important, too important.
So yes, it's very broad per se. There's a lot of cultural differences between Japanese and English stuff too, but essentially most Japanese games start with this philosophy. Level 1, you rescue a cat. Level 100, kill a god. That is the actual principle, whether it's Yakuza or Final Fantasy or Pokemon. It is pretty much the same thing that's there. Western game design uses a lot of Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, or like 3-act structure, that thing, like, okay, you have your Star Wars kind of inspiration. There's a beginning, middle, end. Like, even if you look at things like Uncharted or things like that, there was a happy beginning, then middle, may clutch, and then may happy ending and all that. This is in terms of like overarching game design. There are multiple theses done by multiple folks who did like actual comparison and level design between Japanese and American or Western game design stuff. To paraphrase your question, also, like, Japanese have more games, but American games are more successful games. In terms of revenue, they make a lot more money. 99% of the Japanese games are not published outside of Japan. So you don't even know them. Yakuza was a hit for 10 years before people even knew Yakuza existed. So I'm not really sure, like,
what is the difference to
yes,
successful?
yes, what is the actual criteria for successfulness? It's a completely different industry driven by its own culture, but it also has foundational game design rules into its like the actual philosophy. It keeps itself distinguished, but also in scope. I don't think there's a better way to explain such a broad question. I'm sorry.
Actually, I have played Resident Evil.
Yes.
So there is stories. Yeah, they adapt from that story. It's inspired from the Western, but the design is the Japanese design.
Yes.
But the stories for the game is for the very
Yes. Whenever Japanese do story, they do not use a 3-act structure. They use something called as Johakyu, which is the 5-act structure. They break things down into very different segments and all that. They have a different things, how to control your pacing. That's why you feel like this seems like a Western theme, but also something's different. So yeah, it's something that's there in the original Japanese plays, what they did in the Sengoku era and all that. So it has a cultural influences, but they cater to a universal audience. That's something that you have to appeal. Like, I'm sure I'm seeing a lot of games at IGDC, and over here also many games are actually catering to an Indian audience, but you have to understand you have to cater your games to a global audience if you want to stand out on a global space. Yeah, it's okay to start small, and it is fine. It's just they look things at a grander picture. That's it.
I mean, the base argument that Japanese games are the best has been there forever. So the West versus the East, right? So it has been there forever, and I wouldn't say one is successful over the other, but I understand where you're coming from, where Japanese developers are the most hardworking, I would say. Yeah, exactly. Even the latest Elden Ring, they put in so much content in it. Like, even after 100 hours, you have something to play in these games, and that is that also plays in the fact that the economies are very different compared to Japanese economy and US economy, where US is more about quality over quantity, and Japanese are more about heavy gameplay influence, and they are more arcade driven because their culture has arcade. They kickstarted arcade when there was no industry to begin with, and even today the biggest consoles, Sony and Nintendo, are their home bases are there. So they know gaming way before it was a mainstream thing. They had to promote gaming in US. Sony had to have some. Microsoft came in way late, 2 generations late, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, but still Sony had at least one PlayStation that already launched. Yeah. Yeah. Then Microsoft jumped in. Yeah, so we still have 2 consoles that are driving their economy in Japan itself, right? So definitely, like they have built a culture of making games. At the same time, their anime culture, then the manga culture has kind of made them well known for art too in general, right? So yes, there is no argument that who's better, East or West, but I would say that the culture of overworking, the culture of skill, being the masters, right? Even their sushi, they have to master it for 10 years or something. So they have the culture, the mastering of skill is something that is baked into their culture, and that's the reason why they do everything, they approach everything with such craftsmanship.
If you publish a game to a Japanese thing and all that, and you say like, hey, play our game, the first thing is like, what happens when I press this button? Okay, I'm going to leave this and do this. What's going to happen? They care about the actual moment-to-moment interaction, what exactly happens when I do this, compared to most Western games like, alright, this is the same third person this thing. What, like, you do not pay much focus into that and all that. It's, as VK said, it's a huge cultural thing and all that. And also Kiroshi, it's good or bad, I prefer that's the sad part of it. If you guys are not familiar with it, Japanese have this extremely overworking cultural thing that's there in their society. Essentially, like, if you come back home at 6:30 in the night, your neighbors will mock at you. Look at him, he's coming back home so early, he's just slacking off. So it creates a societal pressure, and the sad part about it is there's a lot of suicide rates also in Japan. So because of this overworking culture, that drives your high quality stuff for sure, but at the cost of human lives. It's something that Japan is trying to fix, and I believe they are actually working towards it, and which is a good thing. But the quality of games hasn't dropped. They make sure that even though if things are jittery and weird, it is fun. Fun comes first. If you play Elden Ring, you see the sheer amount of times sword clips to the other person's head, there are a bunch of bugs where you fall through the map and you finish the game in 30 seconds. There are all these errors and they're like, screw it, it's fun. So that is their primary sense of motivation. Most of Western studios are story-driven stuff because of Hollywood influences and all that. So add your cultural influences into it, but explore it to a worldwide audience.
He hasn't mentioned about the Korean games.
Korean games. Oh, well, those are MOBAs and like the arcades, like they get stuck in the gaming zones. Yeah, that's like, there's a saying in industry, like, if you think you're good at something, remember there's always a Korean who's better than you. Like, scary people who are so good at their job, you'll actually be terrified. Like, hands on, if you ever meet a Korean developer, no, he's miles better than you.
I mean, Seoul is the possible capital of the gaming in the future. That's what I feel like. Actually. So maybe we can Google the games, play, and then have more opinions, about the Eastern games, maybe in the future.
Okay, guys, we are closing. We had a great, we'll open up the floor and we're here, we're offline, you can talk to us. I hope you had a good, informative session. I hope you understood a lot about gaming, career opportunities and how to convince your entire family. So, thank you for being a great audience.